Now, you may have heard or even read on some forum on the internet that doing a bounce test to determine whether or not your shock absorbers are any good is not a good test. People say, well, you really can't tell. Well, I beg to differ. And I beg to differ in one regard, and that is when the shocks are totally shot, a bounce test works. Watch this. This is a W210. We're just going to start rocking. Now, you tell me that the bounce test doesn't tell me anything here. Now, granted, if you have Bilstein shocks, which are gas over hydraulic, you get a gradual deterioration, and sometimes if the performance of the shock goes down, you may not be able to tell just by pushing up and down on the fender. But let me tell you, if you've got a car that's bouncing down the road and you do this to it, it's pretty obvious that it's going to need new shocks. This is probably the worst that I've ever seen. And it happens suddenly. I asked the owner if he happened to hit a really bad bump or something that could have blown both shocks at the same time. But I tell you, these are really bad. You don't have to do any more tests to determine that you're going to have to change this. Now, one thing you should note, this is a 4MATIC, and the front shocks are quite a bit different on the 4MATIC than they are on the regular sedans or wagons. So this isn't an easy job. There's not a lot of good information out there on replacing 4MATIC shocks. Take a look at this. You know, if you've seen normal Bilsteins, you'll say, whoa, look at that fork down there. That's totally different. Now, that's where the axle goes through for driving the front hub. And then the shock absorber goes right up through the center of the spring. So getting the spring compressed enough to get these shocks on and off can be a real pain. And if you take this into the shop, it can be very expensive. So we're going to roll this W210 4MATIC wagon into the shop, and I'm going to replace the shock absorber. And I'm going to determine whether or not there's a method that I can show you that will make this safe for the DIY mechanic. If I don't figure that this should be done in your garage due to safety concerns, then there'll be no forthcoming video. So stay tuned. I'll report back. I'll get this done and get the wagon out here, and we'll do another bounce test so you can compare. And then I'll explain whether or not I'm going to do a training video that will be available to show you how to do this yourself.